Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Deconversion Stories. And today I have the pleasure of chatting with my friend Courtney from the Atheist Dead Show, which you guys have probably heard of, probably seen a few episodes here and there. Mr. Jim Hall's I think he created it, and you came along pretty much right around when he came up with it, did you not?
Yeah, we started pretty early, pretty much at the same time, and it was like 4 people that were involved, and then fell off, and then more people came on, and so right now it's just the 2 of us.
Yes, I noticed that on the Patreon page, the header up there, it's just Jim and you. And by the way, guys, there are those links down below if you want to help support Courtney or just add her as a friend on Facebook. You can do that, or follow them around on YouTube and stuff like that, and become a patron if you like what you see. I've been involved with a few shows with the Atheist Edge, and Jim's putting them up right now, a little bit by little bit. So you'll see my ugly mug on there a few times. And stuff like that. But it was a lot of fun working with you guys. But Courtney, what I do here is I chat to people, or chat with people, not to people, about how they found their way out of whatever belief systems they were once a part of. So why don't you kind of fill us in on which belief system you're a part of and how you found those dominoes falling that led you out to becoming the atheist, let me rephrase that, the amazing atheist activist that you are today.
Oh. Yeah, it was quite a journey, actually, because I started as Union, which is it's a non-denominational Christianity, right? I kind of say that it's like it's a unique denomination, I should say, which a lot of people haven't heard of Union, but it's kind of more of a Bible study than like an organized religion. So people kind of think that they have a personal relationship with God and Jesus, and they take out a lot of the like rituals and barriers between them and God, and they kind of see themselves as all on the same plane and like equal access to God.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it is very forgiving of diversity of people as well, because there's not a sense where like you have to try and be like Jesus. So instead of what would Jesus do, it's watch what Jesus does.
Well, if I could turn water into beer, then I would be doing that all the time.
Well, yeah. So the idea is that when, according to their religion, when you are given this kind of revelation from God that you don't have to do anything to be a Christian, like when you accept Christ into your life, Christ becomes you and like lives through you as you. So it means that you're kind of this vessel, and so anything that you do is through that spirit. So it takes out a lot of the little like trying to be like God or trying to do rituals to be worthy, and it takes a lot of that shame out of there, which is really nice.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But for them, it's kind of Calvinist, where like you either are revealed that revelation or you're not. So God either chooses you to have that idea or not. And it, now looking back, it's very arrogant that way, right? But so my religion was pretty happy and upbeat, and I really loved it. I never would have thought I would deconvert. It was very special to me at the time.
Right.
But I did, there was like a sense of if you're this vessel, then if God isn't in you, then the devil is. So in that way, it is kind of dark.
Is that the only 2 options? Like there's no room for anything else? Or?
I think so. I think just from the conversations I had with like my parents and stuff, it kind of seemed that's how they described it, was if we're like a glove, and if you don't contain God, then you contain the devil. So gay people, for example, according to them, are deceived by the devil. And so in that way, in certain things, it is very dark. But according to them, it's kind of a sense of there's a happier, more fulfilled life that gay people would have if they went along with what God intended for them, instead of like sinning in this way, right? And it completely denies the reality of like being gay not being a choice, and like being an expression of real love that's just as genuine and valid as anybody else. So it just completely discounts that. And my parents knew several people who had like come away from being gay, who had like gone through that that conversion therapy of converting to being heterosexual. So I never met those people, but it sounds really, really sad.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I never understood that. I don't even know what to say, because it's like, how do you convert to a heterosexual? You're either born one or you're not. It's just that simple.
Yeah, and I think they just don't see that, or they don't think about it in that way. So that was one of the things when I was little, I just never vibed with. I was like, that one doesn't make sense, but I'm not going to worry about it too much, like.
Right, right.
And that was interesting, because that was one of the very first things that I was like, well, that doesn't make sense, because gay people are just other people. And I don't think I knew very many gay people when I was younger, but it just didn't make sense, because to me, the way that I was toward everyone else and the way that I felt God would have been was like just completely loving and accepting of everybody, and being very giving and trying to be helpful all the time. So like, no
Sure,
matter who
sure.
you are, everybody has this kind of inherent value. And I just it didn't make sense to me. It felt like it was a contradiction of that. So yeah, that was an interesting one when I was a kid. It was like, no, I'm just not gonna deal with that.
So did that one, I guess, trouble or spot that you had with the faith, did that sort of, do you feel that was like the springboard, and you kind of started looking into other things, or did something else happen to create that sort of a thought pattern?
Well, so I didn't really question most of it, for most of my, like, for all of my childhood, really. And then when I was 19, I backpacked through India as part of
Oh,
this
cool.
youth leadership thing. Um, and it was such an amazing experience. It's this kind of
No
line
doubt.
in the sand for a lot of things in my life, my perspective changing. But a huge part of that was me really being hit with the idea that whatever I believe is because of where I was born and when I was born. Um, and those things didn't necessarily make that true. It just made it available to me. And so I was like, well, it could be true, it could not be true, but I don't have a good reason for it to be true right now.
Mhm.
And so that started it. And then I also kind of shifted away from the whole like abstinence thing with sexuality.
Uh-oh.
When I came back, I was like, I think God's okay with that. So it was really funny. Um, so it kind of like shifted a little bit, but fully, I fully like fell out over the course of about a year, I think.
Okay.
And so my worldview was kind of shaken in India, and then I came back to America and I started taking geology right away. Um,
Oh, okay.
and then historical geology after that, which was like fossils and things. And so much of that just made so much more sense. And I felt like I had a much more scientific uh, outlook as it was. I just didn't have that in terms of religiosity. So when I started to question this as like an idea in the marketplace of ideas, I was like, oh, well, this makes way more sense for me to just go on critical thinking and evidence, and do I have a good reason to believe these things? And then after a while, the way I used to describe it is like I lost my ability to keep my faith. It sort of fell out for me, even though it meant a
Right,
lot
right.
to me. I started to value whether it was true or not over how much like love and appreciation I had for it. Um, and so as an atheist in the atheist community, I've had to kind of make this point sometimes in our community where some people, whether it's true or not, isn't quite as important to them as how much it means to them, or the traditional um, rituals and cultural things that come with it. And for some people, their religion can be meaningful to them, but not necessarily uh, true.
Hmm.
And that was something that helps me kind of connect with religious people in that way, where it's like, it fell out for me because I valued whether it was true or not. But if that doesn't matter to you as much as other things, then that's a completely respectable thing to me.
Right, for sure. Were you guys like avid churchgoers? Like, did you go like every Sunday, or was it more a little bit more casual than that?
Well, we didn't have a location. We didn't have an organized church. And I did Bible study when I was really young, so they took me
Mhm.
to a Baptist Bible study thing, or like, what is that called? The kids Sunday school.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so I did that for a couple years, and my dad was just like, "Yeah, well, we don't really believe all of what they talk about, but it gives you a good like foundation of like what all this means." And I was like, "Okay." So I learned some of it, but I always had this kind of in the back of my mind separating what they were telling me from what my parents were telling me, and so it already was kind of like up for debate. Um, and then after like a couple of years, maybe around like sixth grade or something, we stopped doing that. And my parents would go to this Bible study that they still do on Saturdays, but I didn't have any location to go to. I didn't have anywhere to show up, and I didn't have that community. I had my parents and I had my parents' friends who were adults, and I would like spend hours talking to them about God and stuff. And those
Mhm.
things were kind of my church. It was that community of like conversation. Um,
Hmm.
but
Interesting.
I didn't have like a priest telling me what to believe, and I didn't have like a place to be every Sunday or anything like that. So yeah, my experience was pretty unique, but I was extremely indoctrinated. I was extremely
Sure.
in that belief at the same time. Um, so I do think that helped me to have an easier time deconverting and like transitioning out of that because I didn't have anywhere to not be anymore, right? I didn't have to like change my routine in a major way.
So when you say that you spoke to like friends of the family, relatives or whatnot, and about religion and about God and the different things that the Bible teaches and whatnot, did you guys ever like was there just sort of like weekly get-togethers, or was this just sort of something that happened off the cuff?
Um, my parents had this Saturday morning Bible study that would be a few hours that was for adults and the kids weren't allowed to go. Uh,
Oh,
so they wouldn't allow me to go even though I wanted to. Um,
yeah.
and I never found out why that was. But then in terms of like my study, I didn't really study the Bible as much, and um, I didn't really have a lot to go through in terms of like specific scriptures that I had to grapple with or whatever when I
Yeah, yeah,
deconstructed. But the access to the conversations was just when we would have people over, um, and occasional conversations with my parents about these things. So my like religious practice was like my personal prayer um and my individual faith, but in that sense it was every day.
yeah.
Um, and we would talk about things every day, but there weren't any like major rituals like praying at meals and things like that. We didn't really, my parents didn't really see that as necessary,
Okay.
uh, because in their faith, it's about a relationship rather than a religion. So it's like taking out all those rituals and like um, show of loyalty kind of thing.
Right. Those rituals are much more like witchcraft anyway, so we don't want to do that. But
Yeah.
saying that you never have you read the Bible since then? Like, have you gone like cover to cover, or did you just pick and choose stuff that you wanted to read? Or
Yeah, I never went cover to cover. I think I I was interested in a little bit of it for like a time, but I started to take when I was starting to deconvert. I took a philosophy class,
Mhm.
and one of the assignments was to watch Prince of Egypt, that uh, Disney cartoon,
Yeah, yeah,
Prince of Egypt. It's great. The music is great. It's beautiful. And I grew up loving that movie. I watched it a bunch when I was a kid, and I still love it. But the assignment was to watch that movie and then look at the actual Exodus scripture and compare the rendition of it. And there were things in there that just didn't make any sense. So when
cool.
Moses is
Yeah,
yeah, when, and this was before I knew that none of that ever happened anyway, right?
Right, right.
Or maybe I was discovering it then. But a lot of what I learned about what contradicts the Bible has been later. But anyway, so in the scripture, there was a point where Moses is trying to decide whether he's going to go to Egypt, and he doesn't want to circumcise his son, and God gets really mad about that, and it says, and God smited Moses, and then it just moves on. Like there's no, like, is Moses dead? Like what just happened? And then it just completely moves on in the scripture, and I was like, what does that mean? And what? And I asked my mom, and I was like, do you understand this? And she immediately was like, well, it's the truth. It's just the truth. Like she would start yelling and saying that it's just the truth. And I was like, well, okay, like that doesn't make any sense. So that's kind of the start of my like questioning. And I was still living at home when I went to school there. So it was really interesting to kind of start to listen to different things and understand more and more that like just this doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Doorknob head in the chat says foreskin to smiting. Well, that escalated quickly.
Yeah. Because he wasn't wanting to circumcise his son. Yeah. But then the wife circumcises him anyway, I think. And throws the foreskin and something happens to it. I don't know. But so in terms of like the Bible,
turned into a magical carriage. No,
right. So for me, I feel like as an atheist, though, I learned so much about what invalidated the Bible, what was just not just that all the way that it was written and the way that things contradict each other. And I learned a lot about, major events in the Bible not being true and things like that. So in the atheist community, we have a lot of this education about these things that you just can come up randomly in seminars and books and things. And I learned so much about what made the Bible invalid in so many ways, that it just didn't matter to me to read it anymore. I was like, well, I didn't really read it as a believer, but as a non-believer, there's no point in reading it because it doesn't have like this external validity for a lot of things. So I don't know. It wasn't of interest anymore to me. I was like, I don't know why I would put myself through that because it's all literary fiction to me. And it's like that's a long book. I don't want to read it.
It is. And honestly, I've gone cover to cover with the New Testament, the Old Testament, but I had cover to cover the Old Testament long before I did the new one. Being raised as a Jew, right? So, and the Pentateuch and other things too. I even got a little bit into which I think was one of the springboards for paganism for me, but the old Kabbalah, stuff like that, the ancient Jewish mysticism and stuff like that. So yeah, I would say a similar path as Aaron, actually, getting in from the Abrahamic religion into paganism and then out of it and completely away from the woo and stuff like that. So did you ever get into any of that stuff? Like, did you ever get into witchcraft or crystal healing or any of that nonsense? Or
well, I think once I got out of like not believing in any higher power and not believing in any like design in the universe and all of those things, then nothing else like that made any sense to me. That idea fell out for me, and I was just like, well, there's no religion for me anymore. Right. And so I liked the sense of comfort that I had from that before, but what replaced it was this amazing appreciation for the world as it is, which is so much more magical and fantastical than we would have thought from the Bible. And so that was really amazing to explore. Like, you don't have to make something mystical to make it transcendent and amazing. And and it's more amazing not being mystical, because if we're all here because like somebody snapped their fingers and it's just magic, then that's fine. But what's even cooler is like this slow process of evolution, and like all the intricate things that got us to where we are today. It's like really,
Mhm.
really interesting. And it's so much more like fantastical, you know. Even though like it's true and it makes sense, it's just more beautiful to me.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
The world and nature is far more awesome than these stupid stories that attempt to explain it very badly.
Yeah.
So yeah, the wonder is out there, and you don't need those silly books for it.
Yeah, it makes the world so much smaller and so much more black and white and so much more bigoted, and there's just so many things that make that those books make the world into something that it's not. It makes it less interesting and less amazing. But the other thing that I really liked about being an atheist is I um, I felt this call to action and this like selflessness with Christianity,
Mhm.
um, where I wanted to just follow whatever God set out for me, because if God created the world and me, then He would know what I would be happiest doing, and I would just try and
Sure.
figure out what it was. But what was really daunting when I lost my faith, I was like 19, 20, and I was like, oh well, now I have to figure out who I am and what I want and what I care about and the kind of influence I want to have on the world. But what was amazing at the same time, it's really scary and daunting, but it's also really empowering, because if the world is the way it is because we made it that way, then we have the power and the responsibility to change it and make it better. And
Mhm.
and we can do that. There's no like higher power pushing against our ability to do that. So it gives us this even greater call to action, because we're the only ones here and we're responsible.
Right. Also, I think when you first started that last paragraph you were saying, or you were just saying there, paragraph about finding out who you were still you. You were now just missing that belief section, so that could be filled with good stuff rather than the necessity of some sort of fallacious belief in some supernatural stuff. Right? You can actually fill it up with some reality.
Yeah, and I
And
just I just didn't have to wait on a higher power to give me some message of where I
right.
belong, who I am, and what I want. I can decide that for myself. And so yeah, a lot of people, especially I think when they're younger, or maybe any age, when they lose that sense that like there's a plan,
Hmm.
it can be really scary. But at the same time, it's like you get to create your own plan. You don't have to follow the plan of somebody else, and decide, like, you can decide what's meaningful to you and the impact that you want to have on the world. So it was like, okay, well, the way that I figured out what I wanted to do was like, well, what do I care most about and what kind of impact do I want to have?
Hmm.
And I really loved uh, the idea of education, and I loved counseling. And
Hmm.
so for a long time, I wanted to get a PhD in psychology and be a researcher and a professor. But now I've been bitten by the counseling bug, and so now I want to be a therapist. And so
No, that's good.
I'm in a master's program now for marriage and family therapy, and specializing in sex therapy. So those are the
Right.
things that I care most about. I care about relationships and sexuality and consent and education, and it's all right there. Um, and I really, really love that. So to me, that's my meaning. That's my um, impact on the world, and that is so much better than just being like a vessel for some higher power to do how they want to do.
Right. And you got to remember too, like if God has a plan, then what the fuck is free will? So
Yeah,
not that I actually believe. Well, it's a weird subject because there's so much data coming out saying that we don't really have free will, and then there's
yeah,
other data that I'm kind of on board. Like we may not have the free will, like the full on sort of free will, but I still believe that even though our brains make decisions before we realize it, that we're
yeah,
still making those decisions. So, you know,
yeah. I mean, yeah. So how do you separate like your brain from you? You can't, right?
Right.
Like, it's still
Exactly.
you.
And it's
But
like an instantaneous, like you don't even notice
yeah,
that your
yeah,
brain made the decision first. So for me, it's still a sense of free will.
yeah. So and the free will thing, like I don't obviously believe in like a higher power that
No.
guides us and whatever, but there is a sense that that the entire the entire circumstance of us wanting something or not wanting something else um, is made up of our brain matter, like our brain chemistry, and our
Mhm.
experiences up to that point. And so neither of those things we control. Um, and so the decision to do something or go in a certain direction, that's guided only by the brain matter and the experience thus far. So if you
Yeah.
seek out counseling to be a better person and to do better things or whatever, then that decision to do that is guided by those things, and the work that you do and the willpower that you possess to be able to do that, that's also that. So like there's no
Mhm.
part of us that's like a third part of us that's like a soul and the essence of who we are, that's separate from our brain matter and our experience. So in that
Right.
sense, we have the choice to choose what we want to do based on what we want, but what we want in the first place isn't a choice. It's guided by those things. So yeah, it's complicated, but I do
Mhm.
think that we have like this existential free will, but not the freedom of will to choose what we want in the first place.
Right. Okay. I can get on board with that. But I don't know. I chose something I wanted the other day.
Right.
and I bought the damn thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have the freedom to do that, but
Yeah.
you don't always have like control over what you want and why you want it. Right.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. You're right. It is not really a sense of control because I'm a Lego addict. You see. So when I saw that gigantic Lego Millennium Falcon, my brain just went, fuck, take out the credit card, get it right now. Just get it. So I'm like, okay, brain, fuck, leave me alone.
Yeah.
And then I went and bought the damn thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's gonna be fun to build.
Sam Harris wrote a whole book on that one,
Yeah.
his book on free will. I
Yeah.
really liked that one. And it just because it comes from a neuroscience standpoint, that's kind of my background as well. So with the psych stuff, so I really that made the most sense to me.
Yeah. No, yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, he's kind of derailed himself a little bit here and there, but most of his work anyways, a lot of his earlier work and the work on neuroscience and stuff like that is quite interesting. But so let's talk a little bit when you found your way out. Like, was there any repercussions with like family or friends or anything? Like, did anyone sort of stop talking to you or sideline you, anything like that?
Not really. I think my parents and their friends, they were sort of like, oh, this is a cute phase, Uh,
Phase, yeah.
and and I think it took a few years for them to realize that I was a independent thinking person and that this was a legitimate perspective to have. Um, and so that took a while, and then there was a point where it was you know there was some fighting and opposition, um, and then eventually they kind of got on board and understood that I was still the same person and I still had the same fundamental values. I just didn't believe in this thing, and that does change your values a little bit sometimes. It
Mhm.
can, but and so that changed a little bit of my values, I think, but I didn't really have like political views before I was an atheist. I think politics to me were a little bit out of sight, out of mind, and they were probably a little bit wrapped up in like, well, God has a handle on it. So um, so it wasn't until I was an atheist that I started like looking at politics at all, and then it
Right.
wasn't until um, maybe like around Trump that I got as involved as I am now, where it's like
Right.
I'm actually
Sure, sure.
really paying attention. Um, so it's the one and only thing I think we can thank Trump for, which is like oh, there's some people that like are having some crazy shit go down, and we don't have a lot of power over it, but the little power we have is in voting. So
I think because I really wasn't really a big political guy. I'm still really not. I mean, I check and see what's going on here in Canada, down the US, in Europe, shit like that from time to time, making sure that it's not too out of control. But however, I do think that when you're an atheist, when you become an atheist, I think humanism is something that kind of slides right in there, because you realize that everything that you were taught before was a very our tribe, their tribe sort of thinking. And when you become an atheist, that kind of slowly kind of not really slowly, it kind of almost disappears. Like, well, okay, now I can be inclusive of everybody else because I'm not told that I can't be, right? So I think that humanism attitude at least starts to flow its way in. And that can lead to a lot of political understandings, or at least intrigue in looking into it, so that, you know, you're making sure that people are okay, right?
Yeah, and there was a time when I would talk about secular humanism being superior to religious morality, because oftentimes with religious morality, you have this this like fear of reward and punishment, and the reasons for why you behave a certain way or are good to certain people are because of that. And within religion, sometimes like human beings only have value if they follow your one religion. And so it depends on the religion, but for some, there's like this special gold star you get if you're their religion at best, and at worst, like you deserve death and eternal torment if you don't agree with them on these things. So there's like this sense that certain people are demonic, or certain people aren't human, or don't have that type of inherent value. And so you see that with a lot of religions against atheists, and like gay people and stuff. There's a sense that they have less value or are less human. And so what I love about secular humanism is it really values human beings for their own sake, and it values doing good in the world for its own sake, because it's best, and because it's the kind of world we want to live in. And it's not this fear of reward and punishment. It's not this like because the Sky Daddy said so. It's like because we have good reasons for doing these things, because we know that it promotes flourishing over suffering, and we know that that human beings have this inherent value because we say they do, you know. And I think that that's so much more of a powerful thing, because an understanding of morality, when we look at child development, children start with this like, I don't want to do this because I'm going to get in trouble, and then they graduate eventually as human beings to, I don't want to do this because it's against the law. But some people never get to that next level where it's like, I don't want to do this because it's not okay. It's not right for me to do this. And, you know, it's not in me to do this either. Right. So like that kind of sense where like, I don't want to kill and rape people because I don't want to do that. Right. Like it's not okay, but also I really don't want to. And I think that most people live in that realm. And if you have like serial killers and stuff, then that is often about brain structure and about trauma and about brain lesions and injuries in young adulthood and stuff. And so there's a lot that goes into why somebody wouldn't operate that way, but I think most people do.
Right. Oh, absolutely. And Pete made a good point. Excuse me. Pete made a good point a little bit earlier. Tribalism is a human trait. Atheists aren't immune, and that's for sure. And not all atheists are humanists either. That's true as well, but I think a majority of atheists would also identify as being humanist. I mean, there's probably a small percentage that wouldn't, or maybe they don't know what it is, but or they don't realize that they actually lean towards it. But I think that percentage is quite small, Pete. For at least most of the atheists that I've come across claim to be somewhat of a humanist. So let's just try and keep that going. It's a much better mindset, in my opinion.
Yeah, the idea that like atheists don't have any morals and stuff, it's so misinformed.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah,
Very
yeah.
simple.
Well, I look at it this way: if some form of reward or punishment is what's keeping you from being a shithead, then please stay where you are, because I don't really need you to suddenly not believe in whatever power is going to do that to you, so you can run around doing exactly what we were just talking about, raping and killing people. Like if that's what it takes to keep you from doing that, then stay the fuck
Yeah.
where you are.
Well, and I do think that it's really sad that people believe that that's who they really are without that threat.
Yeah, I
Because
know. Yeah,
I think that most of the time people, if they say that, I don't think they actually are. I think they just think they are. And it doesn't give them enough credit as a human being that you have um, this inherent uh, regard for fairness and for kindness and empathy
hmm
that has evolved over time, and we have that today where people feel that there's just this inner sense, and it gets placed on any number of higher powers that like, oh well, God put that there, right? um so it's sometimes you can't really win with that one.
yeah, I know, I know, I know.
But there is, I think that there's a lot more good in humanity than people give us credit for. And there are these fundamental needs that we have of human connection, of understanding, and I think when you get down to it, a lot of people are very, very similar.
Yep, I agree. Yeah. I mean, when it comes to that sort of thing, yeah. I mean, let's face it, most of us probably want what's best for people, right? Because, I mean, it's almost, in a sense, it almost comes from a selfish point of view. Like, if I want what's best for other people, then they're probably going to want what's best for me too, right? So, all around, we're going to be happy, shiny people, or shiny, happy people, as REM would say. But yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so moving away from the deconversion, because I think you've pretty much covered, and I think I've asked all the questions that I think are important about it. Well, except for one.
Hmm.
Do you feel better now that you're out of a form of belief system and free to be who you are to the fullest extent, honestly? Like, are you much better now, or do you think that, or is there something that you miss from being in it?
um I don't know. I think when I was first starting to get out of it, I would have said that I did miss the sense of comfort that like somebody else is kind of looking out for me and in control,
Sure,
um,
sure.
and like praying that I would do better on a test than I thought I would and whatever. But like I don't know. I think it just never, it never had that much difference than who I am now.
Right.
I don't know, because I did have this huge sense of like appreciation for nature, because it was like this direct line to what I thought was created by God. Um,
Mhm.
Now I still have that, but it's just so much cooler because like all of this is here, like from all of this time of evolving, and like you can learn so many things about how we got here and how all of these things are the way that they are, and it's so cool. So I think I have more of an appreciation, a true appreciation for those things.
Right, right.
um, and I am very glad that I'm not, um, that my religion isn't influencing like my political views or my views on sexuality, my views on gay people, or um, education in general. I think I really love that I value those things, and I love that I value the separation of church and state, and a huge part of who I am is wrapped up in these things that I value so much. And so I wouldn't really be me without them anymore.
Yeah, for sure.
I guess.
So tell me, how'd you get involved with Jim there, who's hiding in the chat, by the way? So everybody flip
Well,
Jim the bird. Hey, Jim.
oh,
So how did you end up getting involved with him? Like, what attracted you to becoming a part of that sort of a thing?
So I was just starting to kind of deconvert when I went to UTA.
Hmm.
And I went to the like atheist and agnostic group there called the Free Thinkers of UTA.
Hmm.
And I really liked their community. I really liked their education and activism there. And that's when I actually learned that I was an atheist. I learned the difference between agnostic and atheism because of some of their educational conversations they would have. So
Right.
I really valued what they provided. They provide that community, they provide that education, and they work to change that stigma about atheists being arrogant, strident, and rude. So I valued that, and then I transferred up to University of Southern Maine, where they didn't have any secular organization part of the university. So I started my own, and I became kind of a community leader for atheism there, and I really loved that role. So when I came back, I graduated from school up in Maine, and I came back to Texas. And I really wanted to join some groups, and some of the groups that I found were uh, really creating that community, being activists and doing protests and doing separation of church and state arguments and educating the public and educating themselves. So these were all things that I really valued, and I met Jim at one of those groups, and he just kind of asked me to be a part of this thing and to come onto YouTube and start talking about different topics. Uh, I found that I just really loved being a spokesperson for these things because I was watching videos and going to live debates and like just doing all of these things that I really loved, and I knew a lot about the science and the history and the education around theism versus atheism, and so I just wanted to share it, and I wanted to be able to be part of a platform that allows us to have a voice when a lot of people aren't able to use that voice for the same purpose, or a lot of people aren't as educated as we are on these things. So giving a platform, having that community, and sharing the wealth of knowledge that we have is very important to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. And you've actually done like you've gone into I can't remember what it was, but a while ago when I was researching a little bit, you basically stood up in like in front of what was it, some kind of a council or something, and
Um,
spoke a little bit about shit. Now I can't remember, but I had it written down too, but I don't know what the fuck I did with that piece of paper now. So
I mean, so we've done a few things. So I've one of the first things I did on YouTube was a Q&A at a church.
yeah.
It was Ask an Atheist event, and we'd actually did a couple of those. So I did one of those with a few people, and then I did one with just Jim and our friend Mark and myself. And my dad went to that one, which is really interesting. So since then, I've gotten involved in so many things. So the guys that hosted that event were priests at, I don't know what you call them, priests or I don't know, pastors, I don't know, but they like teach classes at like a Christian university, and they also uh, are preachers, and they um, host this atheist Christian book club now,
Mhm.
um, which I really loved that, and my dad has gone to that as well. So my dad is still a religious person, but he also really likes watching debates with Christopher Hitchens, and like he really,
Wow, really?
yeah. Um, and
Do you
he
think
really
he might
enjoys
be
those
doubting?
debates. I don't know.
You ever talked to
I
him
don't
about it?
know. Yeah. He's he's very indoctrinated though. Like we
Sure.
don't. He doesn't. I don't know. Like anytime he's in those environments, the first thing he talks about is like how his perspective is different than most Christians, and like if somebody is describing what Christians believe, he points out that it's not that, for him at least, um, and he just always is like reaffirming that. So I don't know. I don't see him deconverting. I think there's a few things that like would make that difficult for him. But I've learned to accept that like my parents believe what they believe and they're very supportive of me. So
That's very cool.
I actually was able to sit down with my dad at one point because he was watching me like listen to all these podcasts and YouTube videos and stuff, and I was like really getting into the atheist scene. And my dad was like, "Well, why do you care about this, right? Like why, why are you picking on Christians and blah blah blah." So um I had this talk that Greta Christina gave at a conference, at an atheist conference called "Why Are You Atheists So Angry?" And yeah, so it turned into,
Ah!
yeah, so she turned it into a book called "Why Are You Atheists So Angry? 99 Things That Piss Off the Godless." And it's this like rant about all of the things that are of true concern to us as humans and as atheists. And most of the things that we're concerned about the way that religion plays out in the world, is about things that happen uh, to believers with these religions that are bad and that are damaging and deadly and negative. So um, it really drove home that idea that of secular humanism, and that like we're not angry because we're just angry people. We're angry because we have legitimate things to be angry about, and it's
Right.
about concern and humanism. Um, and so I sat my dad down. That talk was like maybe an hour and a half or something. And I sat my dad down and I watched it with him. I showed it to him. And he was very patient with me, and he was able to just kind of sit through it. And after that, he really was like, okay, well, that makes a lot more sense to me. So this activism and education and things that I care so much about, it came back to my being a volunteer since I was a kid,
Mhm.
and being the same person that cared about other people and wanted the world to be a better place. Um and so my dad really understood that like this is a very wholesome, like selfless thing that's the reason I care about it.
Right.
Um and so he was much more supportive after that.
That's cool. That's very cool.
Yeah.
And the thing that I saw kind of popped back into my head. It was Ambassadors of Atheism, I think was one
Mm.
of the things. It's up on YouTube too, I think.
Yeah,
Um,
so we actually did that on my birthday a few years ago, and it was really fun. So we went to the Fort Worth Humanists event, and we were like the speakers for that day, and we basically gave a talk about how to be representatives of atheism in a positive way, and how to engage with believers in a respectful way.
mhm.
And just things to watch out for, trying to stay within your level of expertise, like not getting in the weeds about things about evolution and stuff if you don't really know too much about it.
Right.
Um, and being respectful of other people, even if they're being really defensive, and understanding that separating a rejection of an idea from a rejection of a person can be much more difficult when you're dealing with these kind of issues and these kind of beliefs, because they are very held close to the chest. Um, and so recognizing that sensitivity that you have to have, and that extra clarity of like, I'm not rejecting you, I'm rejecting this idea, and that's not
Yeah.
the same. Um, and then like, the importance of knowing that most religious people, when we talk about a lot of these issues, we've heard them a million times, and we've heard these arguments from Christians and the responses from atheists a million times, but the people that we talk to oftentimes have never heard these ideas in the first place. They've never had to think about their faith in this way. And
Right.
so allowing them to catch up to where you are, and allowing them to process what you're talking about and what you're asking them, or the ideas that you're bringing up, is very important, because they may have never heard these things, and they may not know um, any of what you're saying. So you kind of have to go slow and realize that they might be processing all of it.
Hmm.
Because yeah, we talk about a lot of these things in the atheist community, about all the things that surround religious beliefs versus secular beliefs, and so like we understand all of it a lot better, but you have to be very patient and understand that like this can be all new to them.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So what's the plans for the future of the Atheist Edge program? Because I know Jim was mumbling a little while ago about, I gotta stop doing this for a while, but he seems to have kind of changed his mind a little bit. I'm not entirely sure because he keeps going, which I'm happy about. But yeah, I mean, and I'd love to come on. You know, if you guys ever do a live show or something, I'd love to come on and hang out with you. But Mikey, well, hang on one sec. Mikey, you probably have some stuff stewing. So if you want to join us and you have anything you want to ask Courtney, feel free. Time's now. But let her answer my thing here first. There,
I'm Courtney too now. I have cool glasses too. Now I'm Courtney. Aren't we cool, fellow Courtney? Should have changed my name. That would have been funnier.
So Atheist Edge is doing we're doing like a big celebration for all the people. Nice glasses. A big like celebration for all the people that were involved in the process that we did. And then there's I think there are quite a few things that we were going to put in the works. But I don't know. I think right now I've been wedding planning and I've been working full time and I've been doing my master's for marriage and family therapy. So I've had a very busy life and I just usually kind of show up and talk about things, and Jim just really carries the whole thing. So it's really up to him. Like if he decides that he's like, this is too much work and whatever, I'm like, I understand. I don't know. I think he just kind of gets a little frustrated with the community sometimes, and then sometimes
I hear you.
He's like, yeah, but I really, care about this stuff. So I try to be as supportive and helpful as I can be, but I do have a lot going on at the same time.
Sure. But yeah, and that's the stuff you got to take care of before you can really sink back into going with and doing the stuff you were doing before. And I'm sure he understands that clearly. He would have to, in my opinion. So
yeah.
So the wedding, when's that happening?
October.
So my birthday month.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. October 20th, my birthday.
Oh yeah. So we're doing October 24th. So
I'll be sick that day.
So the COVID thing has been a bit of a challenge, but the whole thing is outside, and I don't know, that my parents have both at this time refused to get vaccinated. So
what?
So the rest of the wedding party is going to be vaccinated, and I'm fully vaccinated already. Jason got his second shot recently, so he's soon to be fully vaccinated. And so we're just going to be as safe as we can be and probably do masks for most things. But I've just been kind of dealing with that. It's been kind of stressful, like trying to figure out how I can try and keep as many people safe as I can and allow them to make their own health choices and blah.
Well, masks, I mean, let's face it, even if everyone there is vaccinated, masks are still going to be a thing that you're going to have to do, because even though you're vaccinated, you can still contract a virus and you can still pass it on to people that may not be vaccinated. So masks are going to be in our foreseeable future until the whole herd immunity thing kicks into full gear. And then there just might be places you would go to that you might have to throw it on because there are immunocompromised people or something like that. But for the most part, I think it's good to have them when they're still necessary. And just to have, little chunks of people at the wedding here and there with the masks, and I think you'll be fine.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out the mealtime, like, seating chart thing of, like, because people won't be wearing masks when they're eating. So it's like, how do I do that? So I'm working on it.
Yeah, have an unvaccinated table. Just put everyone there over there.
I want to.
It's called at their house.
But then some people are like, well, you can't ask them on the invitation if they want to disclose that they're vaccinated or not, because that's offensive. And I'm like, I don't know what to do though.
I don't know if I'd say that would be offensive. It's a health and safety concern. How is that offensive?
I know, I agree. But
I think it's offensive to not answer.
Everybody else around me is like, that's offensive. And I'm like, ah. I think what I might do is just say, like, if you in the RSVP, if you would like to be seated socially distanced for the meal, include that in your RSVP, and then I will like keep those people separated. That's all I can. I guess I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, considering that it's your special day, people should just, do as you request and not make a fuss about it, because the day ain't about them.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I just
have you have you considered marrying the coronavirus?
What?
Just throwing some stuff out there. I've written down several solutions to your problems already.
There's some like romance stories now of like women that fall in love and sleep with the coronavirus.
What?
Yeah.
How could you not?
There's like some like erotic fiction stuff.
Erotic fanfic for Corona.
Yeah.
The internet is garbage. I hate everyone. There's one of everything on the internet, and that is not always a good thing. Oh my God. People are such trash bags.
Yeah.
And then Corona came up and caressed her from behind. Like, come on, what is this?
There's like an image of like a woman, and there's a sexy man, but he's like just completely green. It's like
with the little spikies.
It's like the Hulk is like not bulked up as much, and he's like a virus instead of the Hulk. And I'm like, okay.
It's Fabio Hulk.
Yeah.
Gross.
Rory had a good idea.
Oh man.
Just print a dress code in small print at the bottom of the invitation.
Yeah.
No shirt, no shoes, no mask, no service.
Right. Yeah, mask will be required for sure.
So as far as like planning the wedding, now you can throw this right back at me. I'm just throwing stuff at you. You throw it back, you don't like it. All the food is taken care of by Uber Eats. Everybody can get their meal, whatever they want, delivered at the same time. And then they set up a camera with their laptop in their dining room. They can sit and have dinner, right? And then since you're not streaming, you can just, pump up. So you just share screen, put on some Spotify, play all your taste jams, and then get your groove on. Everybody dances in their own house. And then I don't know how you do the electric slide. I mean, it wouldn't be the same group format, but I'm just saying.
The wobble would be kind of awkward.
Yeah, there's people cheating, just wobbling the camera. It's like, no, get up.
Oh man.
You wouldn't have to worry about
you're a genius.
Hotel accommodations done. You're already at home. The drive home, no traffic. I mean, except to the bathroom at night. I mean, but that's it.
Drink as much as you want to.
Yeah, you can drink. You don't have to drive home.
You can get slaughtered. I'm just saying. And then the reception can be on YouTube, and then all your YouTube friends can give you super chats for your wedding gifts.
Attaboy, Dave. Dave finally got his Wi-Fi.
I've thought about doing something like that, like having something virtual where a lot more people can attend, just like virtually. I don't know. It would be really fun to be able to include more people than what we are able to at this point.
Don't even have to buy a dress. You could just wear a green dress, and it could be whatever dress you want it to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh no.
Are you gonna have anyone piping in through the internet to watch you that couldn't make it?
No, not right now. We originally thought about it. We were thinking about like, let's just take some lanterns with like 5 other people and go out to the woods and like do that. And
that's cool.
Live stream it with everybody else. That
was
the original idea. But then like now we're kind of doing an actual thing. So
that's a nice. Ushers, fresh air or bubble?
But for your deconversion story part, it was called The Union or just Union?
Just Union, yeah.
Just Union.
So
did they have
Norman Grubb is like a major figurehead in that, I think.
Okay.
But yeah.
Do they have like any heaven or hell mythos?
I I'm not quite sure because I didn't have a clear sense from them of what that was. But for me, I didn't believe that God would put you in hell without having a clear choice. So according to their religion, God reveals these things to you. And so if God reveals enough information for you to understand what your choice is, then nobody would choose wrong. So like if they're able to understand it fully, right? And if God reveals it to them in a way that they will fully understand. So given that, I felt that hell, if it exists, was like for the devil and his demons, and like heaven was anybody that's a child of God, because it wouldn't be fair to offer them a choice if they don't really know that that's the choice, I guess. So I felt like if God loves us and wants us all to be with him, then like he would give us all the information we need in a way that we would understand, and nobody would choose wrong if they fully get it. So like everybody.
Right.
So that's what I believed, and nobody challenged me on it. So I don't know.
So Jim just gave a super chat, and I'm kind of curious as to what this is all about.
Oh, so the Courtney Grell, Jason wanted, Jason, what am I saying? Jim wanted me to do this, like, if I'm like angry about something, like if something's just unfair or ridiculous about the world or about religion or politics, I'm just like, that thing. He wanted that to be a trademark of mine, but I didn't really do it enough for it to be like, for it to be known. But he's just like, that's your trademark, and I'm like, sure, whatever.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, I don't do that all the time, right? No. This is totally your thing. All right, you say.
I love how other people tell you what your thing is.
I did it a couple times, like on my own, like just in conversation, and he was like, "That's hilarious. You should do that more." And so that's what,
That's where that came from. I got you.
And it was bold.
And thanks for the $5 super chat, by the way, Jim. Well, Courtney, first of all, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your story and the travels of how you got involved with the guy that just gave the $5 super chat there and and told you to do the Courtney Grell. It was great having you on. I think it's been a long time coming. So thank you for joining me. And thanks to everybody in the chat as well. I hope you guys enjoyed today's show. There will be an after party. Courtney said she can stick around for a little bit, but she's got to get that master's degree. So there's a little bit of schooling she needs to attend to. And I totally get that. So we'll only harangue her for about 15 minutes or so. And then she's got to go and do her getting much, much smarter than, well, you're already much smarter than me. So it's okay.
Yeah. Save some degrees for the rest of us.
Yeah. No, I pretty much, I feel like a rock compared to some of the people that I know in the atheist community that are much, much more educated than me. I'm just a hack chemist. So yeah. Anyway, but I want to also thank my awesome, amazing patrons. You guys you guys keep me going, man. You guys are great, and all your support is very much appreciated. And believe it or not, it does go back into the show one way or another. And also, don't forget that Randolph and I are starting up our call-in show very, very soon called True North Talk. And if you want to know more about it, head over to www.truenorthtalk.ca, and you can check out all the stuff there. And there's a link to the YouTube channel if you want to see it. It's going to be very, like the other shows you're familiar with, like Talk Heathen, that kind of thing. So anyways, we'll be doing that sometime soon. We're still building the studio, and there's a lot of funny little videos with some funny soundtracks of us acting like morons trying to pretend we know how to build shit. So head over there and check it out if you want. And also, I'm one of the newer hosts, along with Mikey here, has been in a couple of episodes already. The new revamped and relaunched nonprofit show, which airs between Talk Heathen and the Atheist Experience on Sundays at 3. You'll be able to see myself and other great shiny smiley faces. Some of the newer hosts, including Jamie Boone, who I did an episode with, which was kind of like a dream come true for me. So that was kind of cool. And we were chatting about that on Twitter the other day, and he's just laughing. He's like, come on, man. I'm like, Jamie, you're awesome. So it's great to do that with you. And and the last Saturday of every month, actually, it was supposed to be today. Unfortunately, Andy had something that came up, so we bumped it to next week. So it'll be on the 8th, and then we'll do another one at the end of the month. It's called Atheist Drinking Out Loud, and we have a lot of fun. We get drunk and do stupid things and make fun of people and stuff like that. So head over to Laughing into Disbelief channel and give it a sub if you want to check that out. And you never know when I might send you a message and say, hey, want to come and join us for an episode? Because it's a lot of fun to do. And it looks like we're still working on trying to get X to do it. He couldn't do it, and neither could Bionic Dance and a couple other people. So eventually we'll find somebody that'll co-host with us next. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Well, you never know, Courtney. I'll come bug you sometime and come on the show and hang out with us.
Looks like you're running out of guest hosts, Neil. You might have to double back on an old standby.
Thanks for playing, Mikey. No, I'm kidding. It just, you never know, it might happen because it was fun having him. But anyways, guys, we're gonna call this one a wrap. Again, Courtney, great having you on the show finally and chatting with you. One of the reasons I do this is so I can get to know folks just a little bit better, right? So, and I always feel that greatly improves our community as well. Mm-hmm. So thanks for being a part of that. And yeah, link to the after party is in the description box below. We're going to take a short break, and then we'll be back in no time. And Courtney will stick around for a little bit, but then she's got to go do far more important things than hang out with us bumheads. So until next time, guys, like I always say at the end of the interviews, like the late, great Christopher Hitchens once said, it's called faith because it's not knowledge. And we'll see you guys next time.